This episode of Ladder Legacy is proudly sponsored by the Bedford Group Insurance, helping families and businesses protect what matters most. Whether it's coverage for your home, your family, your team, or your future, Bedford's got your back with the best reliable insurance solutions in Florida. Visit our website to learn more, bedfordinsurance.com. And now on to your episode.
Hey everybody, this is Rudy Romero from Ladder Legacy. I'm here today with Mariel Fry. She's the founder of FM Bookkeeping, a viral firm helping service-based businesses and owners gain confidence and clarity in their finances without being overwhelmed. She's a mom-preneur working on transparency, empathy, and zero judgment, which is what I found to deal with her has been amazing. It's about peace of mind, sustainability, building a business with her family, balancing heart, and a little bit of hustle. Mariel, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love this.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really exciting. I love getting, and today, just so everybody, this is the first time I've heard this word, mom-preneur. I'm super excited to use it.
I've heard this term mom-preneur more and more, and I've just loved it. And I've just thought, I'm going to utilize this because that's really what I am. I'm a mom and an entrepreneur. So I love that they put the two words together to be mompreneur.
And that's awesome because I don't think people understand you're essentially working two full-time jobs, right? Because people don't get the whole part of being a mother is a full-time job. I think we've all gotten over that, right? It's the 21st century. We all understand that now. So that means you're doing other people's books and you're building your own books and you're dealing with reading books. So you are just multifaceted. So how did you get into FM bookkeeping?
Great question. So when I was thinking about starting a business, I've tried a few and I've thought about bookkeeping for a couple of years. So when I was looking into like a business that I can work at and be a mom, I researched essentially what kind of jobs could a stay-at-home mom do where I didn't have to sacrifice sending my kid to daycare, but I can also make my own money, right? And make money for my family. And bookkeeping just kept coming up over and over and over and over again on multiple forums. It's not like it was on one or two as like a one-off. This was like very consistent. And so when I got laid off my job a little over 3 years ago, I told my husband, I was like, I think I want to do bookkeeping. He thought it was crazy. He's like, bookkeeping sounds terrible, but I support you and see if you can really make this a business. And so once I got into it, I worked for somebody part-time, which I always recommend to people, by the way. If you're going to start a business and you're not sure, work for somebody for a little bit, see if you even like it, like dip the toe in, but not fully, and just gauge if you're interested, if it excites you, if it's something you actually want to pursue. And after I did that for a little while, I realized I wanted to do this business, and then I started to get momentum to gain my own clients, and here we are, 3 years later. So it's been an incredible journey so far.
That's amazing. What influenced you to do that journey? Obviously you had an inspiration, but I'm sure you had an influence that made you, or maybe not, maybe you just are such a go-getter, you decided, let me just get at it. But what made you make that transition, being at a company that you were before and becoming that person who's climbing that ladder to legacy?
So I guess I was with my own inspiration for a little bit. To be honest, I didn't grow up with entrepreneurs in my family. I had one uncle who owned a dog store, but other than that, everybody worked for a company. That was just the norm. So I didn't know what an entrepreneur would entail. I didn't know 100% what it would be like. I just knew I didn't want a boss, and I knew that I worked really hard and I couldn't grow any more working for somebody. So I thought, why not do my own thing? Why not start my own business? Why not create my own legacy and my own firm, and see if this was even possible. And so with the experience I took from my corporate jobs of 10 years, doing a lot of billing, admin, reconciling expense reports, I liked certain skills from that. And I thought, what can I do with those skills that I can, create in my own business? And bookkeeping just made the most sense for me when I really thought about it. And that was really what kind of inspired me to say, I want to work for myself. I don't want a boss. I work harder than I've ever worked, but it doesn't mean that I don't get to create my own schedule. So I'm really fortunate that I'm able to be at home with my son. But at the same time, I am able to run my own business and hire a team, which I'm very fortunate to do now. In the beginning, no. Now I have a team. They really work on the day-to-day operations, so I can focus more on lead gen, sales, marketing, and again, I can be home with my son, which is what I wanted. So I'm able to do a little bit of both. It's not easy. I think finding that balance has been the hardest thing for me because there is no balance, right? Like I think that it's such a word I'm saying, but it's survival. And it's trying to figure out like what works with your lifestyle, and for my husband, he's an entrepreneur as well. So the two of us both live really hectic, crazy lifestyles. We thrive in chaos and we love it. But at the same time, it's mitigating and figuring out what our life and our day-to-day look like. No 2 days are the same in our world. Like, I think no 2 days are going to be the same when raising a child. No 2 days are the same when you own a business. And so it's why I love to talk about being a mom and entrepreneur, because they're really both so crazy, but they're both super rewarding.
Yeah, and I think you touched on so many good points that I just can't wait to dig into. One of them is, how do you keep the craziness from overwhelming you? Because I think that's one big thing people like to understand as an entrepreneur. Like, you're being a mom, you're being a wife, you're being a family member, you're building businesses, you're helping, I'm sure, your husband with his work just as he helps yours, because that's what significant others do. That's what me and my wife do. So how do you keep it all together? Is it Trello? Is that the magic place? Or what's the thing that helps you keep it all together?
I would say Google Calendar for me is huge. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't count, right? So for me, everything has to be
Amen.
planned. So, and it's all color coordinated, which also feels a little crazy to some people, but I color coordinate like when I have networking events, or when even personal, right? Like even when I have a haircut, that's on the calendar. Or even if I have a dinner, that's on the calendar. Or if I'm meeting with a client, that's on the calendar. Like everything is on the calendar. And my husband and I, we have a shared calendar called Skylight Frame. And essentially what we do is we've integrated both of our Google Gmails into this one application. And so we have a bigger 15-inch board that we both can see what our schedules are like. And so it's really nice that I'm able to know where he is, he's able to know where I am, and that's kind of how we figure it out. I do have a babysitter every Tuesday, which really helps. And if we have more kids, my goal is to have more babysitting, because you just can't. And it's trying to figure out like what works for you and what works for your business. I think it depends how much you outsource in your business. I think it depends how involved you are or not involved you are in your business. I think for every entrepreneur, you are very involved. For me, I am still involved in my business. I still answer my phone. I still answer my email, but it's hard with a baby. I'm not going to lie to anybody about it, but I am so determined to make my business work, and I will do anything. But look, that comes with sacrifices too. It doesn't mean I'm going out all the time, and it doesn't mean I'm networking like I used to. I network way less, but I've been able to figure out like I still want to go out and do something, but how do I let my husband know, hey, like I'm going out to this event tonight. Can you be home by 5 o'clock? The biggest thing I would say to any couple, especially as entrepreneurs, is communication. Like constantly communicate, or I over
Yep.
communicate. Because if you don't, you're really going to just shoot yourself in the foot. So I tell a lot of couples, like, just communicate, you know, have the conversations, and just be really transparent about your life and your struggles. Not every day is a perfect day. And it's just being really honest with yourself about that.
Yeah, and as a business owner, you're well aware, most days there aren't perfect days, right? We all search for the win. I call them the W's, right? That's what me and my team talk about. W,
Yes.
and I call them woot woots. They're not wins, they're woot woots, which are always my way of saying I'm so excited, right? Because I can't put enough exclamation points or thank yous or congratulations or good jobs in a message. So the team knows when I say woot woot, that means that is the praise, the largest praise one could get with the team is woot woot, right? And on the other side, if I don't over communicate with my wife, then I get yelled at because she's wondering where I'm at. So I think it's great. So you've really, like, in the first, I think we're 8 minutes in, you've just essentially fixed everyone's problems when it comes to spouses working with entrepreneurs. So congratulations, in under 10 minutes you've solved all our spousal issues. But
Wonderful.
with all other issues we have, when it came to starting and first getting the business started, because you went from, like you said, a family just like me, most of them were in law enforcement or emergency services or something. I am the black sheep. I decided to go and do this thing called building businesses. I'm sure same thing for you. Maybe not the black sheep, probably somebody everybody looks up to now, I can imagine, in that sense. But you went out there and did it on your own. And you didn't have that same mentorship or the ability to have people to guide you. Early days, what was it like? Because I think that's one thing entrepreneurs don't talk about as much or as openly. It's like the first 15 months. And it's not even the first year, because you have to get through the first year of taxes, because taxes the first year are a nightmare, and especially the second year, and then they get a little bit better as long as you're doing good business. But like, what was that first 15 months of work look like for you?
So I was the black sheep, for sure. I didn't even tell my family about my business for probably almost a year. Not that I didn't tell them, it just they didn't get it. They didn't understand my business. They didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. And
We're
so when
all
I got
crazy, of
laid,
course.
yeah, crazy. And then now they're so proud, right? So it really is that shift when they see it. But when the first 2 to 3 months, right, before I really like dug my teeth into bookkeeping, I did a lot of soul searching. And when I got laid off my job, I told my husband I'll kind of interview with jobs, but I'm really going to focus on bookkeeping. And I networked with 10 to 15 bookkeepers, and I kind of asked them, like, what was your pain points? What was your struggles? What do you love about the industry? What do you wish changed? Like, I really wanted to know more about bookkeeping. And through that time frame, I met my mentor. She didn't tell me what to do, but how to do it. And now, like, we are friends. We do pumpkin planning every month. And she's my person who I reach out to if I have a problem. She is a mom. She is a bookkeeping, owns a bookkeeping business. She's an entrepreneur as well, also a mompreneur. And so I've always looked up to her a lot. And she's a little bit younger than me, but we both respect each other tremendously. And I love that I have that person in my life. So I would say if you are really serious about a business, find other people doing that business and like just say, hey, $5 Starbucks gift card. Can I take 10 minutes of your time? And most people won't even take the money, but they're willing to give you the time. Talk to somebody, like really see if this is even something you want to do. And I give this example now because I think it's really fascinating. My husband started a construction business about a year ago. And he had one of his guys, young guy, 24, electrician, wanted to be a GC. So he went around with my husband for a day, kind of shadowing him. And within like 4 hours, he's like, yeah, I don't know about this. But he got to see it, right? He got to see what it is. Because I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, we have this idea of the kind of business we want to do. We think this is something we're really interested in, but we're not in the back end. We don't know what it's like. We haven't done the day-to-day. We haven't done the operations. We don't understand what's actually involved. Like sink your teeth in, like get your feet a little wet, see if it's even worth it. And that's what I did. I started to work with another bookkeeper. She kind of mentored me like working in a business. And then once I gained a little bit of confidence after a few months, then I went and got my own clients. And slowly but surely, it was imposter syndrome. I think you kind of have to fake it till you make it a little bit. Not saying you don't know what you're doing, right? I don't want anybody to go out and be like, well, I know nothing about, outer space, right? And I'm going to be an astronaut and I'm going to tell everybody that. Like, no, we're not going to pretend we know all these things. We have to kind of have some kind of background knowledge of it, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't start your business. I think the first year, it's like have the clarity, know what you're selling, kind of figure out your target audience, and just go out there and meet people. Like my first year, I networked aggressively. Depending where you live, I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and the community here is amazing to network and like connect with different people. So I was able to go out and like truly network and truly connect like 3-4 days a week, follow up with coffee, virtual, because people get networking wrong too, especially in the beginning of your business. It's not about people giving you business. Like you need to help other people too. When I meet somebody, I'm like, who's a good referral partner? Who's a good client? Who can I connect you with? And I try to help so much to the point where they're like, wait, I want to help you. Right? We need to give. And in the beginning, when you're not making a lot of money, it's really hard. But that has paid me twofold because I would give so much and because I would help so much. That is what really helped me elevate my business. Because look, my first year I did not make a lot of money. I was fortunate. My husband was very okay with me doing my business and just, seeing if it worked. And now over time, my business has grown and grown and it's going to continue, to grow, right? That's the goal. And so I think you have to understand the sacrifices you're willing to make. It is kind of blood, sweat, and tears. You're going to have your why has to be so prevalent, especially in your first year. You're going to question why you did this. Entrepreneurship, they make so sexy and glossy when they see the peak, right? But at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, there's so much at the bottom that nobody realizes. And it's hard. I find it's a roller coaster of emotions constantly. It's the best in the world, right? Like raising a child, you're going to go through all the different seasons of phases of life and change and growth. Doesn't mean you don't stop loving your child. You could have a bad day, like in business, you could have a really bad day, but your why is so much greater than you could have ever imagined. Like your why to have a child is just as great as your why to start a business. So it's trying to make sure you're grounded in that why, even on bad days. Because there were days I literally thought I'm not doing bookkeeping anymore. I'm done with this. But I have sunk into like why I'm doing what I'm doing and knowing like it's just a bad day. And, a rainbow will come, right? When it rains, it's crappy. It's awful, but guess what? It's not going to rain forever. A rainbow's going to come and sunshine's going to be there. So it's just knowing you got to weather the storm sometimes. And that's hard. And if you can't handle that, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you. But I would say if you love your business and you love what you do and you want to get up every day doing it, know like not every day is going to be perfect. But if your why is strong, especially in the beginning as you're like a business owner, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and that's very eloquently said. Being that giver's mindset, and I'd love to touch on that first, is the most important thing. If you are not giving to other businesses, and I tell everybody I have multiple businesses, but my business is connecting people. That's my business. My business is figuring out how Dry cleaning makes sense for insurance, which makes sense for land development, which makes sense for podcasts. How can I connect? I should be able to meet every single person in this entire world and be able to do business with them in some way, shape, or form. And if I can't do that, I myself have failed myself. So I always look for that opportunity. And it's funny you said about, you should try other businesses out. You know, I agree. I was in home building for 12, 13 years and went into insurance. When a month I got a license and went into insurance and opened the agency. So I knew nothing about it. I jumped into it, and I think it's a 50-50 split. You really should do your due diligence. You should really figure it out. You really should, like you said, do all the right things. Find a mentor, find somebody, go work somewhere, go get experience. And that really does help shorten the learning curve. But the most important thing, the hardest thing for people to do is file the articles of incorporation and just start. That's
Yes.
50% of the work, if not more than that, is literally filing an EIN number. And then what happens next? Then you accidentally meet a few people and then you make a couple dollars, right? And just getting it started. That's the hardest part, is pushing that ball up the hill. And then, like you said, that mountain of work that comes and that's hidden underneath. And when you said it, I think about that picture of the iceberg that they have in all
Yes.
the memes, right? Of all these, you got the Ferrari on the top of the mountain, all these wonderful things and vacations and all this money that comes in. People miss how much really goes on behind the scenes. Like you said, bookkeeping is only one facet of an entire business, but it's such an important part because it keeps you out of trouble and makes sure you have your money. But at the
Yes.
same time, there are so many other parts to a business that you have to learn that it's so worth it to find somebody like yourself. If somebody is looking to start a bookkeeping business, I'm sure it'd be the same thing for you, right? As you'd love, all of us entrepreneurs love to help other people. We would love to give people advice about the things we did right and the things we did wrong. And I've found 99% of entrepreneurs want to help that next person because they get it. They understand what it's like to be on the other side of it, because a year, 2, 3 years ago, you were there. Same thing
Yep.
for me. We were both on the other side of the coin of entrepreneurial work and figuring out what's going to be successful. And we hope those people would help us and lift us up from our bootstraps. Now, some of us had, we call my Bedford the COVID baby because it was our COVID built business, but it was business built out of necessity. But yours was a little bit different. Yours was built on the desire to thrive and grow. With the desire to thrive and grow and the challenges, what are some wins that you've had that's kind of kept you continuing? Because obviously there's always going to be, we'll call them falling forward, but what are some of the bigger wins that you've had that surprised you, that made you say, I'm doing it and I'm not giving up?
Just continuing to get clients, to be honest with you, and continuing to get the referrals of people coming in and wanting to work with me and excited to work with me. Like, that's always a high for me, and that's always a massive win. I think I want to continue to scale. I want to continue to grow. And for me, I'm always looking to get more clients. I think any entrepreneur, we're always looking to get clients, and it depends what you do. I think for me, it's my business is recurring revenue. So I look to gain long-term relationships with my clients. I don't like to lose my clients. Some maybe, but I would say most of my clients I want to keep. And I have great relationships with them, and the goal is to continue to give them great service and great value add. So for me, that's always going to be it. And then I think operationally, just hiring really good people you like, know, and trust. I have one girl who really is like my full-time person in my business, and I give her a lot of credit because she really runs so much of my day to day that I couldn't do on my own. Now I have other contractors who help me as well, but really hiring good people and good employees is everything. I think people really underestimate a good person. And so for me, if I didn't have her, I couldn't build the momentum in my business that I've built today. And so I think we need to really be kind to people in general, whether it is a referral partner, whether it is your client, but also your team and your employees. I think a lot of companies, and I look at bigger companies, just laying people off left and right. And to me, I get it from a cost perspective, but at the same time, they're people. These are people who are married. These are people who have homes and mortgages and kids, and they have things to pay for. And when you're letting that person go, they're they're losing so much. And so I think it's a really challenging world nowadays. But if your business is growing and thriving and doing well, like, treat your employees well too. And so for me, I thrive on being able to help others. I think when you're a business owner, there is more weight on your shoulder that you don't realize. I realize I'm paying for people's like salaries. You're paying for people to survive. And for
Oh yeah.
me, if I'm able to help pay for people to live and to give back to their family, like, I love that I can do that. I love that my business is able to support people. Again, there's pressure in that, but there's something super rewarding and amazing. And that is what continues to get me up in the morning every day and want to win business and want to do well and want to succeed, is because I know there's so many other people supporting me and so many other people who want to see me thrive and people who, rely on me too, which is a real thing.
Yeah, and like you said, there's no greater feeling than someone as an employee, and being an employee like you and me have. There's people out there who have gone right into entrepreneurialism, but there aren't many of them, right? There are people, most of them, us human beings, have to get a job of some sort, and we all know what it's like to barely make grocery bills, barely make gas, right? Because we've all started from the bottom, we've all worked our way up, 99.9% of us, and now to be on the other side of that and be able to provide for somebody else. I always to say it's not that they're my kids, but they're my family, right? That's how I like to see them. They're human capital, and that's how they should be looked at as asset. They are valuable. People are valuable. Now, after COVID, things have gotten harder with finding the right employees. I will say that it's been more difficult. But the people you do find, the ones you can trust, those are the ones that you want to take to the finish line with you. And they say there's a lot of great books out there on business, and I won't claim to know all of them. There's always a great quote about how just because you start somewhere doesn't mean that's where you're going to end, or the people that came with you will end with you in a business. But there's a lot to say about keeping the right people around you as long as possible that aren't just going to say yes to everything. The ones who will challenge you, the ones who will help you grow your business. Like you said, I have a very similar story with one of my independent contractors, employees with the business that is essentially building generational wealth where she is because of the opportunities. So again, success looks different for everybody. The question is, what does success look like for that person or that employee that's working with you? And I think it's amazing what you're doing. And how big is your team now?
I have about 3 to 4 contractors at the moment. If business really turns out well within the next year, I might hire somebody else. But for now, I have a good core team that I'm happy with. So I'm kind of sticking to it until I, continue to scale and need that next level.
Yeah, and again, you're scaling correctly, right? So you just talked about businesses laying off, these major corporations laying off 2,000-3,000 people, right? Especially the tech industry, and obviously went through the recent government shutdown. So you've had to deal with both government and private businesses stumbling a little bit or having some concerns. And I look at that and I remind myself every day, wow, well, imagine if I was still in X business or still had a job and still doing that and had to be worried not about if I can make payroll, but if I can pay my bills, because I may not have that job next week because things change, and to see, like you said, taking it so seriously as a small business owner, we appreciate our employees. I personally think, and I'm sure you do the same thing, twice as much as a corporation's going to appreciate them. Mm-hmm. None of my employees are a number. They don't even have employee numbers. They have names because they are people to me and they are important to me. And without them, there is no way to be successful. But with success and the wins and the losses comes with clarity and confidence. So when did you feel like you had clarity and confidence that your finances and the way you were doing business was really starting to pick up?
I would say probably at 18 months. Probably, 12 to 18 months is I think the biggest thing for me is once I got my systems in place, that's where I started to feel more confident. I use something called Keeper, which is now Double, but essentially it's kind of like if Asana and QuickBooks made a baby. On the back end, it's very task management heavy, but on the front end, it's a great portal and a great system for my clients to use. And so I felt really sophisticated and I felt very professional when working with my clients, that everything was automated, streamlined, like it was super easy for my team to use. It's very easy for clients to use. And I started to gain a lot more confidence. Same with like my billing portal. My billing portal is a contract and invoice, and it's just really seamless and easy. And I would say for your tech stack, that is what made me feel a lot more confident, is having a good tech stack and a good system and processes within my business where I can feel really confident when it comes to the onboarding side, when it comes to keeping clients and maintaining and just continuing on, and if I need to adjust or change, I can. But I felt really good once I had a good tech stack. And once I didn't feel so scrambled. Like I think at the beginning of a business, you feel like, I don't know what to do, or I'm spending money here and I'm trying to get organized here. And it's really hard to like figure it out, right? Like it's hard. Maybe you can invest in coaching to hand it to you, right? But most entrepreneurs, we don't have that opportunity or the luxury to spend thousands of dollars for someone to hand us a handbook. So we're trying to figure out the scramble of like what POS system we're going to use, or how we're going to sell, or what's a good marketing tactic, or how are we going to get out there, or what's a good tech stack, right? But you learn along the way and you make mistakes. And look, I've spent plenty of money on mistakes, but I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And for me, I feel like, I was talking about it with my mentor earlier about like, what do you want to update in your systems and processes? And I said, I'm really happy with my systems and processes for the first time in 3 years. I feel like I'm actually in a good place with everything. I use Slack for my team. I use Double, which used to be Keeper, for like my, kind of system automating for streamlining. I use Say Anchor when it comes to my billing and kind of my contract. So I have good systems in place and good software that made me feel really professional and just really good about what I was offering. So I would say having a good tech stack, depending what you do, I would say 99% of businesses use some kind of technology. It's something I track in my bookkeeping firm for myself, but also for my clients. Like I actually create a separate line item called softwares and apps because it is becoming a more prevalent conversation. It is something that a lot of clients want to cut the cost of, but they don't know where to cut. Because you look at your software and you think, well, I kind of use this and I kind of need that. And it's really hard, to get rid of a software or, technology if you really are using it. And so that's always a really big conversation. But for me, that's when I started to really feel confident in my business is when I felt, look, the longer you're in your business, you feel more confident with the knowledge and, the information that you have. But it's also like growing it so you can build out a real team and you can build out real systems. To me, that was really what helped me tremendously.
Yeah, and with we'll call it the advent and push of AI, it has become so prevalent now to be in the technology, being a CEO or being the president or however we like to call yourself or call ourselves, right? Technology has become the forefront of everything we do. If I told you I'm spending upwards of $3,000 a month on technology alone, I'd probably be saying I'm probably keeping it between Adobe, between my CRM, my AMS systems, between email marketing software, between cybersecurity, VPNs. I mean, it is astronomical. And then of course ChatGPT, because what couldn't round out that conversation without Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that, right? Now, in your world of bookkeeping, how have you seen technology advance? You said the program you're using, Keeper, now is different. Are you seeing a lot of advancements in the bookkeeping world with technology, or at least for like reconciliation allocation, or how is that looking?
Yes, QuickBooks they did a major update back in October. And I would say most of my clients ended up getting that update still. We're still not there yet for whatever reason, but they are trying to make it a bit more robust. I think the biggest thing that they've done is connect. Naturally, in QuickBooks, there is a bank account connected, but what's nice is for a lot of the banks, the statements are connected. So we're no longer needing the access as much to get statements. They're just actually in QuickBooks, so we can download them accordingly. Some banks are not, and a lot of credit cards are not. Like Amex is a big one that is not connected within QuickBooks. We have to actually get account manager access to get the statements, or clients have to send them to us on a month-to-month basis. But typically, a lot of them are becoming more prevalent in QuickBooks, which is really nice. I do think some of the automatic rules can be a little frustrating. I don't think it quite matches up. So there's a lot of things that they're trying to do that I don't think make sense. But, I don't think AI is going to take over. That has been a big conversation with tax and bookkeeping is AI going to take over? And I don't think so. I think it will be a tool like ChatGPT. I think it's a tool based on what you put in, but what you put in is what you get out. So for a lot of clients, they still don't want to learn. I think if anything, they actually don't want to do the books because now they see this big change or upgrade and they're like, I'm not interested in learning. I don't want to do this. Like I need to hand this off to somebody else. And so I think that's any software. QuickBooks is going through major software updates. I'm sure any other software is doing the same thing. I think of like Canvas of the world or maybe Adobe or other platforms. But I wouldn't have the time to learn. And so you want to pay somebody else to do it. So I do feel QuickBooks, and bookkeeping in general is going through the same thing. I know there was one company that closed about a year ago and just left their clients high and dry and said, you only have a few months to collect your books and the information and we're kind of out. And that's the problem with working with a bigger company. I think it was called bench accounting. They wrote to their clients like December 30th, which is a terrible time. So right
That
before
wasn't
any year.
intentional.
No, not intentional. But they kind of wrote this whole email to their clients saying, we're no longer in service as a company. You have access to your books until March 9th. Like best of luck to you. And so they left their clients high and dry. So again, you can work with these bigger companies with AI, but it doesn't mean you're going to get the value. It doesn't mean you're going to get the customer contact. And that's any bigger company in general. One of my new clients who came to me this year was working for a bigger company and she was getting charged an astronomical amount for her books. And I looked at her and I said, something's not right. I said, you should not be getting charged this much. And she was just so appreciative of like the value add that I treated her as a person and not a number. And so with a lot of these bigger firms, they just want to churn out and yeah, charge a cheaper cost. It doesn't mean you're going to get the same value add. And so I do think AI is trying to simplify things and streamline a heck of a lot more, but it doesn't mean it's always right. And so you always need someone to kind of cross I's and T's a little bit. But the reality is these companies, sure, maybe can be good for someone who's super, super small, but even the super small guys want someone to talk to. Like I have clients who literally want to call me and have a conversation. They don't want to talk to someone in India. They don't want to talk to somebody in China. They don't want to talk to, a automated system. They want a person. So I think we are kind of going back to that a little bit. As much as AI is advancing and doing stuff, and I think it's great, I do think people still want the human connection at the end of the day. So
You're,
AI is very interesting.
you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's 100%. I mean, there's no way, and I've had this conversation with an attorney, a physician, and let me put my hand, oh, there we go, an attorney, a physician, as well as a CPA. And I say those three specifically because we'll call those the professional services of the world, right? I leave the engineer out because they know they're safe. No one's going anywhere. There is no way to replace human connection. We can pretend that we can make robots that can talk to us and look real and look all this stuff. It's not happening. And if it's going to happen, Japan's going to have it first, and we're all going to know about it and see it, and then maybe we'll take a look at it. But it's just not going to happen. There's no way for us to just remove the human component. Same thing in home building. You can't remove a project manager walking around a job site checking things that a human being would look at and complain about, right? You can't replace that small business that wants to talk to you, wants to have that conversation. I've used text AI, I've used voice AI, email AI. I went full bore integration with my sales side of the business and spent a lot of money, way too much money, on trying it to see if it worked. And I was told all these wonderful things. It's going to reach out to 25,000 people a day, and 10,000 people will respond, and 5,000 people will tell you they want this, and then 2,500 will respond back, and get 500 actual clients, and that's your whole year in a month. It didn't work. It doesn't work. People don't want to answer their phone and say, hey, it's another AI person messaging me again, or you get 17 text messages a day that are spamming. They don't want that. They want the human, and especially post-COVID, they want the human connection. They want to know the person they're dealing with understands their problems, can have a dialogue and a conversation like this, and is able to relate to them, right? And I think that's a huge part of you in the small business world, and me in the small business world. We can offer something that companies just can't, which is opportunity to be able to do that. Big corporations will never be able to do that. The one sad thing is, though, is that PEs and VC groups are buying everything up. So, the New York, California, Texas markets are, on fire with capital groups purchasing smaller businesses, especially in the insurance world. There aren't many smaller, we'll call it the old mom and pop shops left over, because the return on investment, the multipliers, is so significantly high to just leave the business because they all just want it for themselves. But like all good things, we persevere and we keep pushing it and pushing on. What did you want to do? What was your goal before you decided to jump into the entrepreneurial world? I'm sure in school you probably thought, hey, I'm going to be the chief of police, or you're going to become the mayor. What was your vision for yourself? Was it always bookkeeping or accounting, or what was it prior to that?
I didn't really have one. I know that's kind of a strange thing to say, but I was not that kid that like I wanted to be a fireman, or I wanted to be a nurse, or I wanted to be a teacher. Like I always knew what I didn't want to do. I was really good at that, but I never knew what I really wanted to do. And when I was thinking about school, kind of weird, I got my associates in hospitality, travel, and tourism, and then I got my bachelor's in finance, and I did use both. I worked for a travel agency for a couple years, and I've always done kind of billing and finance background work. So I've used my degree, right? And I've used my degrees, but I never knew what I really wanted to do. I always liked certain hobbies. Like I loved travel, and I had a podcast during COVID about interviewing tour guides, but that didn't go anywhere. It was more like a hobby. And during COVID, I tried to sell products from all over the world, and that didn't go anywhere either. And so when I was thinking about like a business, I was like, what is like a practical business that I have skills that I can do, but that I can sell and make money? And I think that is a really big thing I try to tell people. It's like, yes, we all have passions. We all have things we love. Like I love the gym, but I wouldn't be a gym trainer. I love travel, but I wouldn't be a travel agent, right? I think you have to be really clear on like, yes, something you love and you can enjoy, but also something you can make money. And at the end of the day, we have to make money. And I don't know what kind of planet people live on that you don't think you need money, but we need to make money in this world. I really believe like you make money, right? And then you save, spend, and invest. You can't invest, you can't save, and you can't spend money if you're not making money. If you don't make money, you can't do anything. You can't spend money on your kids. You can't spend money to pay the mortgage. You can't spend money on bills. You can't save for an emergency fund, and you can't invest money to have it for retirement later. You have to make money, right? And I was always taught to save. And no matter what I made, if I saved enough, I'd be fine. And the truth is, we don't live in a world anymore where we can just save. We can't make $45,000 a year and live off of that. In America, that's just not a thing.
Nope.
Maybe in other countries, but in this country, in America, like
East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast. I would say it's and especially like a second tiered city or like a New York, like it's impossible. It's impossible. You have to learn to make money. And if you cannot make money, it is going to be very hard for you and very challenging for you. I think we live in a world where it is two-person income. Unless your partner is making, $400,000, $500,000 a year, right? Then maybe the wife can stay home or the partner can stay home. But most couples have to work. Both couples have to work. Both mother, father, partners, whoever it is, has to work. And so you have to make money. And if you don't make money, it's going to be very hard for you to do anything else. And so, for me, it was a challenge to even want kids. And my biggest fear of a child wasn't necessarily like having a child. It was the financial side of it. I thought, how am I going to afford a kid? And that's part of the reason why I moved. I live in the New York area. We moved to Charleston, which is cheaper than the New York area. Still not cheap, but the biggest difference is our bills and our taxes are way less. And that is what is able to help us when it comes to raising a family. So I do think when you think about that, you have to think of what you can and can't do. I think for a lot of people, if your job is in a location-based area, you're stuck. But for my family, if you're really close to family, but for my husband and I, were a bit open-minded. We said, let's try something different. And since we've moved, everyone thinks of New York as like, if you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. And I don't necessarily believe in that anymore. I think if you have a computer and a laptop and you're motivated and you're hungry, that is where you can make it. And
you go to the Philippines or anywhere and make money. It doesn't matter anymore, right? It
doesn't matter. It's so crazy. You know what I mean?
I have a backpack over here with Starlink in it. I have my Starlink Mini, and I can go walk out in the middle of the beach, go throw that on the floor, and go connect to this thing and go make $1,000. You don't have to be in the city anymore.
No, and it used to be growing up, you had to live in a city to make money, and now we live in a world where if you have a laptop and you're connected and you know how to meet with people, that's how you can make money. So I do find that I'm able to create a better life for myself, and I'm so much happier with that. So, I tell a lot of people, like, really think about what you want out of life, and it's not just an entrepreneur, and it's not just being like a parent. It's like, what are you really looking for out of life in general, and it's really like thinking about that from a bigger lens. And some people just may not have that option, so I'm very aware of that. But if you do have that option and that is something you're open-minded to, like, I don't know, it's just thinking outside the box, and a lot of people just don't do that.
I think it's just getting started, right? And I think, again, I use COVID as the world-changing event. A lot of us realized, and maybe that's part of what Me Too, I think we all knew it, right? We all knew that for the last 100 years, we'll call it since Henry Ford decided to put people on a plant and call it a 9-to-5 shift, right? And stick them in a factory and say, you only can paint cars black. We all knew there was something wrong with that, right? We all knew something was going on here. And I think the one thing I wish, and I know schools don't do it, not necessarily public schools, private schools do, because they're looking to build generational wealth. They're looking to build leaders, right? I wish they would work on leadership in school more, right? On finances more, on the things that matter more for kids to learn to become entrepreneurs, because there's nothing wrong with that. If we lived in a society where 50% of the population wanted to do things and the 50% of the population wanted to dream about it, imagine how wonderful the world would be. Now it could be 60-40, either way, doesn't matter, or 70-30, but there has to be a great mix of both. And we've gotten to the point where we've gotten to, and I think tech is the perfect example of a job that pays a lot of money. It could pay upwards of, like you said, $400,000 or $500,000 if you're in California. Now, half of it goes to taxes and half of it goes to living there, but you're still making a lot of money on the books, we call it, right? Yeah. But people have got so comfortable with a paycheck, and that's the problem. Is we've been comfortable with saying, "Hey, can I have mine now?" And we should think divergently. we shouldn't accept that. We should accept mediocrity. And I think it's amazing that, like yourself and other entrepreneurs I've had on here, you guys have pushed yourselves to find that success. And just because you know what you wanted to do, I knew what I wanted to do and I'm still not doing it. So I decided to take a different path. And I think it doesn't matter where you start or where you end. And this is going to be my next question for you, is what worked in the middle for you to get you to today, though? Because obviously, where you started, you didn't think you'd end. Where you're ending, you're going to keep going. But that middle portion of life, what did you do that gave you the insight and gave you the passion and the drive to do it? Is it just born with it? Born this way? Is it that New York mentality? What is the thing, the spark that made you during the middle of the journey, climbing up the mountain, that Everest, have that passion?
I think definitely born with it. I think when you have that New York hustle and that New York grit, I don't think it leaves you. So I'm very grateful for my time in New York. I think, in the middle of it, actually, I had my son a little over a year ago, and I really joke it was like the fire in the belly. But for me, when you become a parent, and especially I think as a mother, you go through hormones and pregnancy and birth and all of these like different feelings. And I just remember having my son and looking at him and thinking, I want to work harder. Like, I want to make more money. And it doesn't mean I'm going to hustle to kill myself. I want to be clear on that. It means I'm going to be strategic in how I move the needle and how I get the ROI. And so I look at him and I think I want to make more money for him. I want him to have a better life than I have. I think any parent wishes that. You had a great life from your parents, or maybe you didn't. And you think, well, how can I give my children a better life? And then, their children a better life, etc. And so for me, my middle was really like having my son and thinking about how can I make sure like my son has enough money for retirement, make sure he has money for college, and how can I make sure he has money to maybe buy a home one day, And I think about that because, again, having money gives you flexibility, it gives you freedom, it gives you experiences, it gives you so much more than you can imagine. And I think we think, oh, money doesn't matter. If money doesn't matter, then why are we all working so hard? We work hard to make money so we can do the things we want to do. Like, I work hard so I can go on vacation. I work hard so I can go and, buy groceries and not have to like worry as much as other people. I make money so I'm able to support my family. Like, I think it's it should be a normal conversation. And some people feel like, well, money doesn't matter. When you die, your money's not going with you. And that's fine. Your money doesn't have to go with you. When you die, someone has to pay for your funeral cost. I want to work harder. I want to work smarter. I want to still be there for him, but I also want to grow my business. And I think for a lot of women, we're very shamed on that. We're very shamed to say, like, we should, don't make more money, like, stay small, like, be at home with your kid, and encourage women to, like, want to think bigger, to want to have dreams, to want to have goals. And I think when you think of, like, the end of your life, right? I really believe it's seasons of life. I heard a woman speak, she has 3 boys, and she started essentially like a franchise of a spa business that's doing incredibly well. I love her spa. I think it's amazing. And one of the things she said, she goes, if I had 3 young boys starting this business, it would never work. She's like, I was really involved with my kids and their sports and their schedules. Like, it wasn't going to happen. But once my youngest was like in high school and the other 2 were in college, I had freedom and I had time, and I wanted to think about my life in a different way. And so I encourage women to really think, like, wherever you are in your journey, whether you're thinking about starting a business or in the middle of the business, or, you're on, or like you're continuing to scale, like wherever part of a business you're in, or, what you're thinking about, don't stop dreaming and don't stop like thinking about it. I think the biggest thing is doing it, right? I think, like, to your point, half the people who start a business don't even have an EIN or don't even like think about that. But I do think if you really want a business and you really want to make something happen, like, we can all make things happen for ourselves if we really want it. And so don't ever be afraid to have a dream. Don't ever be afraid to like want to make money or to be successful. And I think for women that needs to be more of a conversation. So many women are vulnerable about money. They're nervous to talk about it. And I want to be part of that conversation to say it's not weird. You're not like awkward or strange. Like, you should want to make money. You should want to thrive. You should want to be successful. Like, if you want it bad enough, I really, truly believe you can make it happen. I know for myself, that was the case. I was not like a straight A student at all. I did not like school, but I was always a hard worker. And to me, I just always had that work ethic. Like, I knew whatever I did, I could do it well. It's just figuring out, like, what do I want to do, which I think is really hard for people to figure out. It took me a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's a great thing to say. I think you're right. Women are almost given a choice, and it shouldn't be a choice. You should be able to have your cake and eat it too, right? We live in the greatest country in the world. I want my cake and I want to eat it, right? Everyone should have the opportunity to do it. But I think it's the way you've explained it. I hope that other people that listen to this, find that voice that they want to get involved, get into things. I always look at, I go back to Scrooge McDuck, and I make that joke quite often to a couple of my friends, and we talk about that he was always villainized, right? He's the guy who's pinching pennies, has the vault, has the safe, and he's known as the bad guy, right? Why was he the bad guy? Because he liked money? There's nothing wrong with money. It's what you do with it. Money's just a tool. It's an object to build a future, a brighter tomorrow for you, your family, and like you said, your employees, the people around you. And if we all looked at it that way instead of a thing to hoard and to not help each other, like you said, that giving mentality, imagine how much different your world could be by living that way, and how much more excitement you can have, and how many less discrepancies or issues, especially in the bookkeeping world. Trying to get people to pay their bills on time is like an act of Congress, right? Everybody wants to be 30 days late because we're all supporting each other's, we're all loaning each other money for each other's businesses, essentially.
True.
AKA, welcome to business ownership. We all are trying to get that AR and AP down, or at least quicker, or getting it together. And it's funny. It's really funny that we all say we all want the same thing, but we're all not finding it yet. But it's amazing when you start to find people like yourself and a couple of the people who've been on the podcast that have talked about that type of mentality of challenging the status quo, of being okay to have these conversations and talk about it openly. We all should be happy for the success, whether it's just to start a business, whether it's in the middle of the business, or when the business is doing great. It shouldn't be at the end when everybody's standing around clapping for you at that point, right? We should be able to look at success. It's an entire journey. It's not just where you end up. The journey itself should be something we are all happy to be a part of, because we're on this earth for not so long, but long enough where we should really enjoy it. At least I know I'm already halfway there. So that medium average age, I think, of a male in America is like 72 or 73 or something like that. There's only so much time, so enjoy it, enjoy the ride, enjoy the fun, and embrace, as I like to say, embrace the suck, because it's not going to be easy. But what will be easy is enjoying that drink in Mexico or any other place that you like to go on vacation, or Disney or whatever, because you are pushing for that success.
Oh.
Is, with all the things you're doing now, is there anything you would have changed in the last 3 years that could have maybe accelerated your performance, or could have gotten you to a place where you would have learned something more quickly? Obviously, you said you had a mentor, somebody, a confidant, but are there any other tools or things you've done that could help that other entrepreneur who's listening to this maybe get to that success a little bit more quickly and maybe not fall forward as much?
Not necessarily. I'm very grateful for the journey that I had, and that I am going on still. So I think it depends on your journey, and it depends how quickly you want to be successful. I think a lot of it rides on you, right? I think for me, I had a little bit more leeway because my husband was being supportive, and he said, I could take over the bills for the first year of you doing your business until you continue to grow and gain momentum. So I really hustled. I took that time and I didn't waste it. I really took that time to go out and network and meet with people. So truthfully, I wouldn't really change anything in my journey. I'm very grateful for the journey that I'm going on. I think it's really helped me tremendously. And every business is different. It depends how quickly you want to accelerate. I say for like my husband starting a business, he had bigger bills to pay for, like our mortgage. He had to figure out how to make money very quickly. And he did. So he didn't have necessarily as much lead time as I did to grow a business. He had to figure it out within 4 to 6 months because then he quit his job. So that's a bit harder. So I think it depends on your business, the volume, profit margins, like what you're actually going to make and what you're doing, to close a deal. So it really depends on your business. I know for my business, it was easier but harder. And for my husband's business, it was harder but easier. And like for me, once I gained clients and momentum, it was easier for me. For my husband, it's like he's really getting out there trying to prove himself in construction. And then once he got good work, it was very easy for him to keep getting the referrals. So it depends what you're doing in your business and the journey you want to go on. You can make it as hard or difficult as you want. I do think the beginning is always going to be difficult. But you have to find a little bit of joy in between and celebrate the wins. I think a lot of times, especially the first year to 18 months, we're not celebrating. We're just like grinding it out. We're hustling. We're trying to make money. But you have to celebrate the wins. And my husband and I, we would celebrate, oh, we gained a new client. Like if I gained 10 clients, we would go out for like ice cream. You know what I mean? It's like little things that you can celebrate that
Love
don't
that.
need to cost, and it doesn't need to cost you a lot of money, but it doesn't mean you can't celebrate. I think we're always like I hit a goal, right? And then it's like, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? What's the next goal? That's how we're always thinking as an entrepreneur. And I love that because it pushes you. I think my biggest thing I say for myself, happy but never satisfied. I'm always going to be happy where I'm at. I'm never going to be shameful. I'm never going to hate where I am. I can always want better though, right? We can always better ourselves, right? Like I go to the gym and I'm happy with how I am, but I could always be better. I can always be stronger. I can always try to lift more. And same with my business, right? And same with being a parent, truthfully. Like we get more confident, right? And as you maybe have more kids, you get more confident because you like have been through that before and you can do it again. So I really think it depends on perspective and it depends on your mindset and how you look at it. Like if you think something's difficult, you're going to think it's very difficult. If you think something's easy, you're going to make it easy, And look, there's always going to be circumstances that come up, but I think a lot of it's perspective and it's mindset. And for me, I'm grateful for, even the bumps in my road. They've made me stronger, they've made me more confident, and truthfully, they've made me better. So I just tell people celebrate the wins, big or small, and you'll get through it. And I think a lot of it, truthfully, is mindset. And I think that's something I continually look to work on all the time.
Yeah, and I think we all can. Like you said, I think that's the roll up of an entrepreneur is that never excited but never satisfied, right? Always wanting to have dessert. I think is the best explanation of if you don't have that mindset of I may be full, but I'm going to eat that tiramisu no matter what happens. It's going to happen. That is like the mindset of a strong entrepreneur who wants to see success. Doesn't mean you have to eat the whole cake, but you have to at least jump into the next thing because there is so much work to do that will be on your back that you have to get done. There are no excuses. The excuses are just your own, and you have to be strong-willed to be able to find that success. But with that said, what's success look like for you now in the next 3 years?
I think just being able to have my family, to continuing it to grow and still growing my business at the same time. I'm growing two things, but I want to just be able to do both mindfully. I think when it comes to my success, it's being able to gain momentum in my business in the right way, but also be excited to be around my family at the same time. I think no 2 days are going to be the same, but success to me is being able to have a thriving business and also supporting and being there for my family. So if I'm able to do both and being able to pay bills and save money and also still experience life, like that to me is what success is. And I think every entrepreneur has their own story and journey, whether it's like you want the Lamborghini or Ferrari or the big home, or whether it's just paying your bills and not having to worry about anything. Success looks different for everyone. But I know for me, it's just being able to grow my business, take care of my family, and just being able to enjoy the good times without having to worry, like, where's my next dollar coming from?
Who would that person be, and what would that question be?
I think I would love, like, maybe to ask a celebrity, like, what was your secret sauce, or like, what was the thing that propelled you to keep going? Or like any entrepreneur, to be honest, like if I could even meet like a, I don't know, like a Bill Gates or, a Jeff Bezos, it's like, what is the thing that kept you going? And how did you continue to grow your business even through hard times? Because I think, for this year, I talk to my clients and I feel the economy is making them nervous. They feel like they're not making as much money and it's a really scary time. And you just think, how do you get through that? Like, how do you have hope to get through the hurdles? And so I would ask any major billionaire, like, how did you feel confident in the beginning to like get through hurdles or hard times?
That's a great one. I have not had that one yet, so that is a wonderful one. I'd love to ask even Elon Musk. I know people feel the wings they feel about him. The guy makes money and the guy spends a lot of it, and he is definitely a hard worker. Somebody who could sleep on a factory floor of a car company. I'd love to ask, like you said, ask him what kept you not going crazy by sleeping on the floor of a factory to get the job done? You know, where does that come from? How
Yeah.
deep down does that reside in you, or is it learned? Great,
Yeah.
great answer though. I love that.
Thank
Well,
you.
Mariel, I really appreciate you taking the time to come today. But before you leave, how can people find you and find FM Bookkeeping?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Mariel Fry, which is always a great way to reach out to me. If you email me, I'm Mariel at fmbookkeeping.com. And I also have my website, www.f as in Frank, M as in Mary, bookkeeping.com. And you can schedule a discovery call right on my website. Wonderful. That sounds amazing. Thank you, Rudy.
Awesome, Mariel. I appreciate taking the time to come in today and having the conversation. If you have anything for me, let me know. But we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.